Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast, featuring your hosts, Matt Siltala and Dave Rohr. All right, here we are for another awesome episode of this Business of Digital podcast with Dave, and we got something unique today. Dave is actually not in Chicago. We're in the same room recording today.
It is weird.
But luckily, we got everything working out just fine. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about Google algorithm updates and how to react to them. And so when we first started talking about this, I was like, well, I don't really pay attention to the algorithm updates. Like, there's some people that are constantly like picking apart every aspect of it, and good on them for doing that or whatever. But in all the years that I've been in SEO and all the years that I've been doing this, I've never really just like paid close attention to it. And so I was like, are you sure you want to do an episode on this? And you're like, yeah, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. I think that's the angle, the idea, the just, settle down. And I just had someone ask me today, it's like, hey, what articles do I need to read about this newest update so I'm fully aware of what's going on? And it's kind of a tough thing because I'm like, I happen to come across a couple articles just to, for me personally, just to pay attention a little bit, but I don't chase them either.
Yeah.
I never have.
Yeah. And that's, there's a couple local guys here that I work with, just, friends of mine and stuff like that. And these guys, they've never, I don't even know if they know that Google has algorithm updates. It's like one of those things where with them, it's like, well, what do we do to stay on top? We continue to produce the kind of content that we've been doing. We continue to, get listed, make sure citations are correct, make sure all the NAP listings are correct, just the basic normal stuff. Like, is your website running? Is it healthy? Doing those kind of things. You don't need to chase the algorithms all the time.
No, and you shouldn't. If you're chasing the algorithm, it's going to burn you.
Yeah.
At some point, because you're going to be chasing it and trying to go too far off the edge and getting too far away from, making sure your site is actually a usable site for people. And instead you're going to be like, oh, well, I just read an article that says now, Google's looking at, the layout of my site. So what if we change the layout of all these content pages so that, it's already thin content. So to keep that thin content that's been ranking that really shouldn't be because it's garbage, what if we went through and we modified all of the templates so that they all use different templates? I mean, you're basically looking at ways to try to work around whatever Google's trying to stop you from doing.
Yeah.
Because, maybe it's been working for a year, maybe it's been working for 6 months, maybe it's been working for a couple of years. But, whatever that update is, Google kind of realized that there's junk in the SERPs, and it's giving a bad kind of feeling, and it's a bad experience for its users. So they're looking at what they can do, especially now with the machine learning and stuff. They have so many different levers, but there's also, and we've always heard the numbers. And if you're listening, but was it Martini Buster, also known as Roger Monti, his real name?
Come on, everyone knows only as Martini Buster.
I know. I always forget. I'm like, what's Roger's last name? He even quoted from 2012 Google talking about there was 665 updates in a year.
Yeah.
So
how are you going to chase all those? You're not.
Yeah. I mean, let's just assume they're only doing it during the work week. That's 2 a day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's at least 2 a day updates going in there. And it could be just really small, tiny little updates for Google Images. It could be for Google Maps, Google local listings, whatever it is.
Well, and just think of all the simple things that humans, people, we get wrong because, like, for example, in talking about all this, the only thing I can think of is, and I've mentioned it before, but, with the whole disavow thing, and again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't disavow links or do what Google says in that, but what I'm saying is think about how people have done a simple thing like that wrong. Like the example I gave on a podcast a few episodes ago, how someone found a search engine land link and asked for it to be removed. I mean, hello guys, that's like a link you don't want removed. And so like, that's what I'm saying. Like, people are going to look, they look way too into this kind of stuff, and yeah, they just it's more harm trying to chase it than it does good, in my opinion.
And just because if someone's listening, they're probably curious about this update, or specifically just in general. I mean, Danny Sullivan, the new search liaison, it's a hilarious name. No, he should have been like the new Google guy or something. You know, I'm going to just read your points, Mr. Roger. Google offered a few clues. It's like the update was focused on providing better search results. There's nothing wrong with the last rankings. Nothing wrong with sites that lost rankings. And they kind of came out and said there's no way to fix the sites. So if you're kind of chasing this newest one and you've heard about it, Google's basically saying, we made some changes. If you lost rankings, this is not a penguin. This is not a panda. This is, not Fred, which is the name for all of them. This isn't a Florida. This isn't any of those old that was a huge update to the algorithm. Now it's just there's just tons of little stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, and it also makes me think about just all the different kinds of information out there. For example, we have people all the time like, should I do should my site be responsive, or should I have a mobile, like a dot, like an M dot or whatever? And so it's like there's so many different things that are out there. It's like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you get everybody on the same page? And so there's, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can.
No. And so for you that do want to chase, or you do want to be aware, there are a ton of tools. Like Rank Ranger, I think, has one. Systrix has one. The ones that most people typically talk about would be like SEMrush. It's almost like a weather report for rankings. And Mozcast also has one.
Or just follow Dr. Pete Myers.
Follow Dr. Pete on Twitter, and he'll usually talk about it. But, just this week, in the 15th, there was pretty stormy weather on Mozcast. It was showing a whole lot of different stuff changing. And I think they track 10,000 keywords. And they track the same 10,000 keywords for a number of years now. So they kind of watch to see how much fluctuation there is. And he's got a whole bunch of, statistics and math behind it to see what's going up and down. SEMrush is another one. They show you what percentage of what they're tracking, how much is HTTPS, how much isn't, what features are showing, what features are dropping. GetStat does one every so often where they'll kind of talk about quarterly, like what's changing. And there's a couple others you can really, if you really want to pay attention, or use someone like SEMrush, Authority Labs, GetStat, Rank Ranger is another one, or I think Moz even has some rank checking stuff, or just watch your own Google Search Console.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what would you recommend, just based on the kind of listeners that we have here, the person that may not have all the money for all the different tools, or doesn't even get to it,
Well, it's just the time too.
Right.
I don't have time to sit there and look every day to see, is search volatility up or down?
So what do you recommend to those people to pay attention to then? Like, why, what are the things that they should be chasing?
Leads, revenue, sales.
Right.
Like, to me, that's what matters.
And so, and again, that's why we're having this conversation and talking about this, because that's what's always been more important to us. Like, those are the things that's what drives us. That's what kind of reporting we give, rather than trying to chase or, keep up with all the different algorithms and all the different changes that happen all the time. And if a client comes and says, hey, did you hear about this latest algorithm update or whatever, if you're paying attention to that kind of stuff, you're like, well, yeah, look at all the stuff that we've always looked at. Your leads are still strong. Your sales are still strong. Traffic's still strong. I don't know. What do you tell them?
I typically look at that, and then from paying attention to rankings, I try not to pay attention to single keyword rankings, because if you're tracking, we'll just say you have 50 products in your store, not a huge store. You can have 100 to 200, even 1,000 keywords driving traffic to that page. So if one keyword or two keywords that you track drops, yet everything else stays the same, and you lose maybe one sale a day, does it really matter?
Yeah.
So when it comes to like monitoring keywords, I tend to group them. And I tend to have groups at least 25, 30, up to 50. And you can either do it by category or you do it by service or business line and monitor that group so that if you see that whole group go down to those types of pages, then you kind of go in and go, okay, if you have Google Analytics set up for e-commerce or you have it set up for leads and you're tracking stuff, you start to look and say, okay, what kind of leads? Are leads down for this type of service? Have we had fewer requests or fewer calls, people asking for this type of thing? And then you start to try to look for, did that small dip go down? The other thing I like to do is track those same keywords. I watch my competitors, because is it just me?
Right.
Or was it just a shift in our vertical? Was it just a shift in Google? And that will sometimes tell you a little bit more about what Google may have been doing, what keywords. But then it goes back to our leads and sales and, the e-commerce and everything. Is it up or down?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the main thing right there. And again, I think it's important to point out that if you see a massive shift or a massive change, like if traffic all of a sudden just drops off or all those things that you mentioned just go away, then obviously there's something that did happen. But I think for the most part, with what we were talking about, the 600 plus algorithm updates within a year, like it's pointless to try to track all of them. But like there are those big ones, I guess, over the years that have happened.
And there still are some from time to time.
Right. Side note, I just have to laugh at this because the Panda update, I actually got a rescue cat, and that same exact day that Panda came out, the rescue cat's name was Panda.
Nice.
Anyway. So, I guess I don't, as far as helping people navigate through this, obviously anything that we've talked about today, we're going to give you links to, Twitter accounts or sites to go and check out. But again, just my 2 cents are, if you're worried about, like let's say that you do follow a search engine site here or there, and no matter what it is, and you read about an algorithm update or whatever, whoever you need to be talking to, or if you're worried about, like if you have people that are doing the work for you or whatever, it comes back to, where's my traffic at? Where's my leads at? Where's my sales at? If you're not having any major changes in that or shifts in that, you're okay. And, you're not really needing to pay attention to this so much. Just continue to do what you're doing. Continue to create the kind of content that people are looking for. Continue to pay attention to your analytics. Start looking at, what are all the different ways that people are looking for me? Create better videos, update different content, do checks. If you're linking out to different sites that have really good information, make sure that those links are all still working. Just do those simple internal or technical things to continue to make sure that that your site's healthy and things like that. Those would be kind of just like my thoughts for, do that stuff versus always worrying about a silly algorithm change.
And then if you are worried, you can go to any of these types of tools that'll tell you the SERP weather, but just look at your Google Search Console and see if impressions and clicks are up or down. Maybe you actually got a bump.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too, just the simple fact of,
or maybe you got a penalty.
Well, just the fact that you're talking to go check your Google Search Console, like there's so many people, it's crazy. It's 2018, and I'm still amazed at the number of people that when you ask them about it, they have no clue, or I don't know that login, or if I have it set up, someone set it up, and they're not in it. They don't.
I'm trying to think. So over the last year or two, I'd say that 60%, 50 to 60% of people that I've worked with did not have Google Search Console set up.
Wow.
And about 80 to 90% don't have Bing.
Oh, man.
Like most people do not have Bing search set up.
And they have great insights.
And they have some great insights too. Just it'll crawl your site and they've got a bunch of other stuff and they'll give you more link data. They'll give you more keyword data. And it ties into with your Bing ads as well. So yeah, look at those two, look at your analytics and look at your sales and, are sales up? Awesome. was a good update for us.
So what would you recommend, people do or look at, or how would they approach it if, they are one of the ones that were unfortunate and they are listening and they're saying, okay, well, we're checking this out and we did drop or we did have an issue. What would you tell them to do?
Did you do any code updates in the last week or two?
Okay.
Was there a site outage or a server outage? Crawl your site, check around your site, act as a user on your site. Is anything broken? From time to time, if you have certain API connectors working into your Salesforce or into your HubSpot or into whatever it is, was there an outage, whatever your service was that day, or is there an ongoing server, outage?
So I have to laugh because you reminded me of a story. And again, it's the simple things. Have you done this very, very simple thing?
Did you put disallow on your robots?
Well, no, this gets even worse. Listen to this. You're going to laugh. So I get a call up from a guy. He's like, hey, I haven't really had a lot of activity on the, I haven't got a lot of calls. Like, is something up? Like, did we switch something or whatever? I'm like, no, let me check. First thing I do, I go to the website to just check it. It's down. It's been down for like months. This is like a friend that, I'd not paid to monitor or anything like that. It's just kind of, anyway. So I call him back up. Hey, your site's down. That's why you're not getting any traffic. And he's like, oh, I did get some like notifications for renewals or something like that. He's like, I guess I had to look into. Anyway, so my point here is like the simple things, like go back, check, is it up? Is there something that you've done? Yeah. Did you, like Dave mentioned, did you put a disavow? Any kind of updates, anything that you did, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Does someone have access? Did your devs push something live that you didn't know about, or your agency or your developer, did they accidentally move your dev site to production that changed everything? Like, just start with the very basics of, did anything change on your side? And then look at your analytics, look at your sales numbers, lead, call volume, whatever it is you measure, your e-commerce sales, and then move down into, Google Search Console, Bing, does everything look normal? And then start to just debug from there.
So, I guess the only thing that I would recommend, as far as just someone like my final thoughts here, my final thoughts would just be like, and again, I don't want anyone to take from this that we don't think that,
you need to worry,
that this isn't important, but it's not something that you need to stress out and worry about and continue to, have issues with. And so, any final thoughts, Dave?
No, that's it. I mean, pay attention, but don't really freak out about it. More worry about your site, worry about doing what you should be doing, more so than that. It should really only happen if you hear about someone or someone asks you about if there's an update. Go look at your stats, go look at your site and be like, nope, we're fine.
All right. Great advice. And like I said, everybody, we will have any kind of reference to anything that we talked about. We'll also throw in things like, where if you're listening to this and you are one of those ones that have never heard of Google Webmaster Console or any kind of tools or anything like that, or Bing anyway, like we'll throw those links in there. We'll link to, anyone that we've talked about and, hopefully get you taken care of. And Dave and I are on Twitter and we will love to answer any of your questions. You can follow us on bizofdigital, of course, but for Dave with Northside Metrics, I'm Matt with Avalanche Media, and we will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.